everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and it's time to talk about what happened at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Royal Quest from the Copper Box in London. This was a big show. There were several title matches on the show, but the first thing to mention is that one or two of these match reviews might not quite match up with your thoughts, and that's because you may have seen the match more fully than we did. I mean, we managed to catch the beginning and end and most of the matches, but it is fair to say, I think, that the event was plagued with streaming issues on Fight. Hopefully they sort it out before All Out tonight, of course, but apart from that, it didn't really get in the way too much of the action. So if I've missed one or two things, that's probably why, but I think we caught most, if not all, of the important stuff. So without any further ado, yes, let's take a look at what happened at NJPW's Royal Quest. The first match was a six-man tag team match pitting Roppongi 3K, Shoyo, and Rocky Romero as well against the team of Ren Narita, Shota Umino, or Shooter as people have christened him since he's been taken under the dirty wing of Jon Moxley, and Ryusuke Taguchi as well. This was kind of a fun, light, easy match to get everyone into the show and get everyone invested, and the crowd did seem pretty hyped for this. The energy of the crowd would kind of ebb and flow over the course of the night, but during big moments, they did respond with appropriate noise. In the end, it was Roppongi 3K who picked up the expected victory, I think, given the fact that their opponents had two young lions on the team who do rarely pick up a win. And it's important as well to shout out WCPW original Gabriel Kidd, who is now part of New Japan's LA dojo, because he was there ringside as one of the young lions. It was really cool to see. It was one of the young boys, I suppose. I guess you become a lion once you start having matches on the roster. Not quite sure how it works, but it was really nice to see Gabe there. There can only be bright things for his future. Sho picked up the victory for his team, and Roppongi 3K kicked off the night with a big babyface win. I say big babyface win. It was a babyface versus babyface clash, but the more experienced team picked up the victory. Next up, another tag match, a standard tag match this time, with a much more clear heel versus babyface dynamic running through it. We had on the babyface side of things, KOTA IBUSHI and Juice Robinson taking on, representing the Bullet Club, the team of HIKULEO and YUJIRO Takahashi. Again, this match was one of the slightly more casual ones just to get the crowd involved, but the response for KOTA was absolutely unbelievable. Of course, he's had a monster year, winning the G1 Climax and progressing to a title shot at Wrestle Kingdom in January. And after a pretty nice match in which HIKULEO showed off his monstrous size quite a lot, it was the babyfaces who picked up the victory, KOTA IBUSHI hitting all of his signature moves and finishing things off with the Kamigoye knee. Next up was the first match of the night with real intensity and real heat behind it. Will Ospreay and Robbie Eagles, who called themselves the Birds of Prey, and they were wearing matching gear as well, like a proper tag team, taking on the team of El Phantasmo, ELP, and TAIJI ISHIMORI, representing, of course, the Bullet Club as well. The story here is that, well, first of all, El Phantasmo and Will Ospreay have been feuding, and then Robbie Eagles switched sides from the Bullet Club over to Chaos, turning babyface in the process and massively pissing off his Bullet Club brethren. I think this was probably one of the stronger matches of the night, certainly one of the stronger undercard, non-title matches of the night, with Ospreay and Eagles really clicking well as a team. I know they've faced off before in Australia when Ospreay's gone over there, and they've really got a great chemistry. It turns out not just as opponents, but as tag team partners as well. As I say, this was a really fun match. Lots of high-flying stuff going on, featuring four very nimble, very agile, very fast guys in the ring. It was a real blast to watch. It wasn't the most epic match of the night or anything like that, but it was really fun indeed. And Ospreay and Eagles picked up the victory with a new sort of double-team finishing move, a tag-team finisher, in fact, a double Spanish fly off the top rope, and that was more than enough to pick up the 3 count. After the match, Ospreay and Eagles had managed to sort of cheekily steal the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles from ELP and TAIJI ISHIMORI and posed with them in the ring, taunting their heel opponents, and then Ospreay got on the mic, and obviously there was a monstrous reception for Ospreay with this being in London, and Ospreay basically said, why don't we challenge you for these titles? So it looks as though we could have new Junior Heavyweight Tag Team champions soon in the form of Ospreay and Eagles, but that's no guarantee, of course. ELP and ISHIMORI could well hold on to those titles yet. Next up, another tag team match featuring representatives of the Bullet Club. This time it was Jay White and Chase Owens taking on the LIJ team of the leader Tetsuya Naito and Sanada, who occupies a very interesting position in the New Japan landscape right now, given the fact that he picked up a clean victory over Kazuchika Okada, the champion, in the G1 Climax. I wouldn't say this match was quite as fun as the previous one, but it was still a good one in terms of developing a storyline. This wasn't the blow-off of any sort of feud or anything. It was just a step in the road towards this Jay White versus Naito showdown that I'm sure we're going to get in the future, probably for Naito's Intercontinental Championship. Obviously, it's worth mentioning that Tetsuya Naito was easily one of the most over guys on the entire show, because of course he is. It's Naito, everybody loves him. But it was the other LIJ member who picked up the victory for his team, Sanada, clamping on the skull end and keeping it locked in after the referee had called for the bell. Now usually this would be a heelish move of course, but because it's Bullet Club and because, you know, Jay White's in the match and he's the biggest heel in New Japan right now potentially, nobody really felt sorry for the Bullet Club. You know, I think Jay White was on the outside trying to save his partner and Chase Owens was in the ring tapping away and passing out and everything, and nobody cared. Everyone just found it really good and hilarious. Eventually Jay White slid in and broke up the submission and everyone booed him. Even though he's just trying to save his friend, everyone booed him because he's such a despicable heel. And then Tetsuya Naito beat him around the ring a little bit, hit him with the Destino and posed all tranquilo, all chilled out to the adulation of the fans. But this wasn't the last we'd see of LIJ's influence on the night. More on that after the main event. Next up, a match for the tag team titles, the heavyweight tag team titles. The champions GOD, Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa taking on Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis, who won a tournament in Rev Pro, winning the finals the night before to secure this tag title match. And probably because they've been a great tag team and one of the best on the UK independent scene for the past few years now, I think it's fair to say that the crowd were really behind Aussie Open in this one. They really wanted the babyfaces to win, but then again, GOD had Jado with them with his kendo stick, sticking his nose in where it didn't really belong. I hate heels so much, grrr. Again, I think this was one of the stronger undercard matches of the night. It was really fun, and it was a great showcase of Aussie Open. Obviously everyone in the Copper Box seemed pretty familiar with the tag team given the fact that they are such a popular team on the UK scene. But for a wider global audience who might not be too familiar with Aussie Open, this was a really good match to learn a little bit of what they're about. Well, they're both quite tall, but there's a big man, nimble man combination going on with Mark Davis playing the big strong boy and Kyle Fletcher playing the more nimble agile guy, and it works really well together. They're a great tag team and they showed off some really nifty double team moves as well. Jado tried to get involved, but in fact Mark Davis was able to nullify him by just being twice his size and scaring him off and grabbing the kendo stick out of his hands. Then he got back in the ring, and as the closing sequence came about, it looked like Aussie Open were about to pull off a massive historic victory. But then I think Tanga Loa was the game changer here, scooping up Mark Davis, showing incredible strength and dropping him with some kind of like, I'm not quite sure what it was. I think it was like a pile driver-esque sort of move. And yeah, from there he was able to, I think it was Tanga Loa again, hitting Kyle Fletcher with a super powerbomb from the top rope. And GOD looked really strong in victory here, not relying on Jado as much as they usually do, and defeating a very plucky set of challengers. Next up, I think maybe the most noteworthy match of the night, not for positive reasons entirely, but this was a match that both myself and Sam, thanks for joining us on the live stream by the way if you watched us, we both predicted that this would be match of the night, and it really wasn't. Tomohiro Ishii versus Kenta for the Never Openweight Championship. Now there was a lot of confusion in our live chat about whether this was a work or a shoot, and I'm just going to guess and say, you know, this was probably just a total legitimate incident, because it's very unlike New Japan to book something like this, and also at the same time I think these two could have had a wonderful match if both men were firing on all cylinders, but instead what we got was a bit, not controversial, but it reduced the quality of the match. In fact, you could say it was controversial. You could say that if it was legit, then the match should have been stopped sooner, because what happened essentially was Kenta appeared to be out on his feet at several moments. A lot of people are fearing that he may have suffered a concussion at some point. Obviously, if he has, we wish him all the very best. And it did hamper the quality of the match, obviously, understandably, of course. It was still a really intense match. There were still cool moments like Ishii and Kenta sitting cross-legged opposite each other, like Shibata does, his pose, and just slapping each other in the face. There was a lot of good stuff, but sometimes Kenta just didn't seem all there. He fell over at one point when he seemingly was on the offense and just sort of flopped into the middle of the ring. There was a really nasty suplex where it looked like Kenta just couldn't hold up his end of the bargain on that move, as it were. And also, at one point as well, it looked like he forgot to kick out when he was supposed to, and the referee had to kind of pretend that he kicked out at the stroke of 3, but he didn't quite do it in time, and it was an obvious sort of error, I guess. And then, again, I'm not sure if this was part of the plan or just New Japan improvising to try and end the match sooner, but GOD ran back out, you know, Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa. They ran back out, distracted the referee, attacked Ishii, hit him with the Magic Killer, and that sort of left Kenta to pick up the victory. But then Ishii kicked out, and eventually Kenta was able to win in a more decisive fashion on his own, despite the interference of GOD, of course, which we can't forget, but Kenta was able to win with the go to sleep. So this means that Kenta is the new Never Openweight Champion, but I think a shadow will be cast over this match, just for the sort of strange nature of it. It wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be, and hopefully Kenta, well, hopefully first of all it was a work, but if it's not, then hopefully Kenta turns out to be okay. Next up, the penultimate match of the night, and maybe my favourite match of the night. It's between this and the main event probably, but I think this one might edge it for me. It wasn't as long or as epic as the main event, but I think it may have been a better match on balance. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for the British Heavyweight Championship. The Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship, of course. This match was great. You know, the two already have great chemistry. We know this from their previous clashes, and it was, you know, a really good back and forth contest. Tanahashi had to go at some old school British wrestling, exchanging submission holds and grappling with Zack for position, and really doing well. At one point he did Zack's bridge where he crosses his arms, and the crowd loved that. But the crowd were firmly behind Zack Sabre Jr., of course, because he's English and he's one of the best wrestlers to ever come out of the UK, and everybody just really wanted to see him beat Tanahashi. Well, I say that, but then something kind of strange happened. I think it's fair to say something strange happened. It wasn't like one of those matches where the crowd starts off rooting for one guy, but then the other guy wins them over in a sort of Rocky sense, like Rocky IV against Ivan Drago. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was more the crowd were behind Zack all the way through, and then Hiroshi Tanahashi hit the high fly flow and pinned Zack Sabre Jr. to become the British Heavyweight Champion. And the crowd instantly realised, this is brilliant, Tanahashi's the British champion. They all jumped to their feet. It was the biggest pop of the night potentially, and it was just awesome. A bold booking decision by New Japan, but one that I pretty fully agree with. And finally, the main event of the night, Kazuchika Okada, the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, taking on Minoru Suzuki. This match was long. It had a 60-minute time limit. I'm not actually sure how long it went for, but it felt like it went over half an hour. I'm pretty certain it did. And basically, it was Okada and Suzuki trying to outdo one another. So Suzuki would try and strike with Okada and usually get the upper hand because he's Minoru Suzuki. But then Okada would fight back really defiantly, at one point holding his hands behind his back, in fact, while Suzuki slapped away at him in the face and hit him with some really crunching forearms throughout the course of this match. But then again, it's Okada, so you know that he's never going to be on the back foot for too long. Although, despite that, it's not like a sort of John Cena kind of, oh, just hit an F5, 5 moves of doom and then I'm going to pick up the victory kind of situation. Okada always makes it feel like a struggle, so even though he wins the vast majority of his matches, it always feels like he earned it by the end of the match. That's pretty much what happened here, but the crowd were firmly for most of it. There were a few dueling chants and stuff, and Okada was popular, of course. He got a huge pop when he came out, but the crowd really wanted to see Suzuki win. I'm not sure whether that's just because Suzuki's particularly popular and has also wrestled in Rev Pro quite a lot, and we were kind of in Rev Pro country here, but at the same time, it could just be because the crowd wanted to see a big historic title change in their own backyard. Ultimately, that's not what happened. Suzuki gave a tremendous effort, at one point lighting up Okada with strikes for about a minute on end, it seemed like, and every time Okada was going to fall down, Suzuki would prop him back up and just continue to pepper him with shots. But eventually, Okada was able to pick up the victory, escaping numerous Gotch-style piledriver attempts from Suzuki, hitting him with the spinning, jumping tombstone, and nailing a Rainmaker to pick up the big title retention. The big win, the big victory for the Rainmaker. But its night wasn't over yet, because Okada then got the microphone to try and, I guess, to cut the traditional New Japan show closing Victor's promo. The winner of the main event of a big show typically sends the crowd home with a little promo, but he was interrupted by SANADA, who I mentioned defeated Okada clean in the G1 Climax and therefore has a pretty strong claim to a title shot. SANADA then challenged Okada. Okada seemed to accept. A lot of it was in Japanese, but they did speak English for quite a lot of it as well. Fair play to them. Despite the obvious language difficulties, they gave a pretty good job. You could understand the gist of what they were saying. And also, that means we're going to get Okada versus SANADA at some point down the line. I'm almost certain that'll be pretty soon, before Wrestle Kingdom, because we know that Ibushi has the title shot at Wrestle Kingdom. And to fill the gap, I think a nice Okada-SANADA match is a pretty good idea. They've clashed a lot of times before, they have a good chemistry together. You'd really expect Okada to keep that title heading into Wrestle Kingdom, but I think it'll still be a really good match. So that's it for New Japan Pro Wrestling's Royal Quest. Once again, thank you to everybody who checked out myself and Sam's live stream. Our all-out reactions are not a live stream, but they will be going out on the channel in the near future after the event. So yeah, I'm gonna go and get some food and then get ready for All Out. Hopefully it's good. I'm so tired. Catch you in a bit. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.